Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending our monthly webinar. As Helen just noted, I'm Victoria Melendez, a JASA Program Committee member, working alongside Amy Poster and Allison Tolman. For those of you who are new to JASA, the organization is a volunteer and member-led one. It promotes the study and appreciation of Japanese art and culture. In addition to having the opportunity to attend in-person events and trips, our members also receive a copy of the beautiful and scholarly JASA publication entitled Impressions, which is published twice per year. Now, without further ado, please allow me to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Andreas Marks, who is a Mary Griggs Burke Curator of Japanese and Korean art at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. From 2008 to 2013, Dr. Marks was a Director and Chief Curator of the Clark Center for Japanese Art and Culture in California. He has a PhD from Leiden University and a master's degree in East Asian art history from the University of Bonn. A specialist in Japanese woodblock prints, Dr. Marks is the author of 26 books. In 2014, he received the International Ukiyo-e Society Award in recognition of his research. And in 2018 and 2022, the Top Book Award from the International Fine Print Dealers Association. In 2024, he was associated a commendation by the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs for his contributions to the promotion of Japanese culture. Today, Dr. Marks will speak about his latest book, which is entitled Japan's Manga Revolution, From Painted Scrolls to Comic Books, and focuses on the antecedents of modern manga. Thank you, Dr. Marks.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you, JASA, for having me again. I also just renewed my membership just to make sure that you guys know. I think I'm getting close to 25 years or something like that of being a member. So the talk today is going to focus, as Victoria said, on my latest book, Japan's Manga Revolution, from painted scrolls to comic books, 1680 to 1920, meaning I am not going to talk about what we know today as manga. I'm going to talk about what was before that, storytelling in Japan, how it was done before modern comic books. And to give you an overview of the chapters in the book, and later I'm going to give you a selection of a couple of the titles that I'm discussing in the book. But the book indeed has much more, but in the interest of time, there's no way that I can go through the entire publication. So the chapters in the book and the way how I'm going to go forward in this talk today starts with the early storytelling through painted hand scrolls, so not yet anything printed, but actually painted. Then I'm continuing to talk about the early uses of the term manga, where it's coming from, what it actually means, and when it was started to be used in Japan. After that, I'm showing you examples of storytelling, beginning with luxuriously illustrated poetry books, going on to actors, women, and leisure activities. Then something that really is fabulous in Japanese art, which is humorous stories. And I'm moving after that on to supernatural adventure novels, of which there are really a lot. And I've pulled out those fantastical novels illustrated by Hokusai then into a separate chapter. I'm ending with the influx of Western ideas, the political satire that surfaced then in Japan in the late 19th century, and that was very much inspired by what was happening in the West, and that then led right away to modern manga. So when we're talking about early storytelling, we mean painted hand scrolls that developed after the start of painting, which was on walls and ceilings, in graves, and later also in temples. And those earliest ones that exist date to the Kofun period, so 3rd to the 6th century. Now, picture hand scrolls, or emaki in Japanese, with Japanese narrative subjects, originated in the 8th century. And typically, they're around 1 feet tall. They can be 33 feet in length. And they are then being viewed in openings of around 2 feet wide, and then you roll it up again, and so you proceed through the scroll, just looking at a portion. The earliest manifestations of Japanese hand scrolls that have been preserved date from the 12th and 13th centuries. Now, to the content, we have Buddhist legends, literary and historical narratives, biographies, and fables. Originally, the illustrations were separated from texts and arranged as alternating elements. It wasn't until the 14th century that then text was wrapped around the pictures. And it's important to note that the authorship of many of these hand scrolls has remained anonymous. There are largely no names of painters or of the people who wrote the calligraphy. So we're really lacking that kind of information, unfortunately. Now, to start with an early example that's in the United States, it's actually in New York at the Metropolitan Museum. This is a fragment of the illustrated Sutra of Past and Present Karma, dating from the 13th century, as is the case with lots of these works that have preserved. They actually don't exist anymore in their full size, but just in fragment form. And then those fragments got remounted as hanging scrolls. So that's the case also here. The story is on the life of Siddhartha, the historical Buddha. And you can see here very nicely how the text is separated from the story. The text is written underneath. And of course, as it is the case with Chinese as well, we're going here from top to bottom and from right to left. The Met also has, and of course, as a museum curator, I'm very envious of this, also a complete set of 5 hand scrolls of the illustrated legends of the Kisano Tenjin Shrine. So another 13th century work that is really absolutely fantastic, beautifully in beautiful condition, very wild, engaging paintings. The story is about Michizane from the 9th century. And then another part of the story is about the monk Nichizo, who then eventually reaches the palace of Enma, the king of hell. And so you see here that monk, how he is at the doors to hell. Amazing colors, really beautiful work. And I hope you take the time to look at the Met's website, where you actually can see the entire scroll photographed. We in Minneapolis have a fragment from this hand scroll here, which is a bit later, 16th century, the Tale of Genji, and this is from the scene Spring Shoots 2. No idea where the rest is, how long the entire work is. It's only ink on paper, so a very reduced work. In color is this scroll, which is titled "The Story of Crickets," from the second half of the 17th century, which is attributed to Sumiyoshi Joke. There is another one actually in a Japanese museum, which we believe is connected to it. So the story is about a cicada, a cricket, an evening cicada, that are competing for the love of a jewel beetle princess. So the figures are not humans, but they are humanized insects. You can see here on this picture, the interior of a building, a painting devices very well known, of the roofs blown off so that we can actually look inside, and you have here these court ladies with insect faces in various activities. To move on now to the term manga. So manga literally refers to man literally refers to water that overflows. So we're looking at two characters from Chinese that are combined together into one. So since water is that overflows, can in a broader sense then mean that it is unrestrained, it's casual, rather random. So that's the abstract term that has been attached to man, and ga just means painting or drawing. Originally, the term was used for simple insular drawings that did not contain a narrative. So it's a very different kind of way than what we know today, how we use manga today. So it nowhere near the storytelling cartoons or comics as we think of manga now. Now, how did it get started to be used? So early on, we have to go back to 1771. It's the title of Suzuki Senshu's book, Miscellany of Casual Drawings, where the term manga appears first. But manga at that point was not pronounced as manga, it was pronounced as mankaku. So the title of the book in Japanese is Mankaku Suichitsu, but it's the characters manga. So one could misread it as manga suichitsu. The first time then the term appears in a text is just a couple of years later, 1798, in the book Comings and Goings in the Four Seasons, which contains simple drawings by Kitao Shigemasa. So not in the title, but in the accompanying text. The first time then that the word manga as manga, I mean read as manga, was used in a title was in 1814. And that was actually in two books that were published in the same year. And it's unclear which of the two was first. If they are even related, they might not be at all. So the one of them is Kazushika Hokusai's famous Hokusai's manga or Hokusai's sketchbooks, as it's also known in English. and the other one is Manga of 100 Women by Aikawa Minwa. And I'm getting to those in a minute. So first here, a spread from comings and goings in the Four Seasons with illustrations by Kitao Shigemasa. Now, that's the book where manga appears in the text, but not in the title. And so the illustrations show all classes of people, craftsmen, as well as here samurai walking around. On the top right, there is some kind of brawl between a couple of men. At the bottom, there is a worker hammering. Then there is on the bottom left, there is a scene of a woman and her child being carried. So this is singular images, no repetitions of specific characters, just scenes of the Four Seasons, and yeah, so it's different to what we're soon going to see that then Hokusai did using the term manga. What we see here in this example is meant to all happen in the 9th lunar month. So we have this timely separation of the illustrations. Here now we're getting to the very famous Hokusai's manga with the subtitle "Transmitting the Spirit and Revealing the Forms of Things." The origin of this series of books is very interesting. So Hokusai visited Nagoya, the city of Nagoya, in 1812. And is said to have at that time created around 300 sketches. And so these 300 sketches is then what were reproduced in Hokusai manga in this series of books that was published at first 1814 to 1819 in 10 volumes. So 1814, there was just one volume that came out, and then 1815, 2 volumes, and so on until all 10 volumes were out in 1819. The fact that he created his sketches at a visit to Nagoya also explains why the publisher actually of Hokusai manga was based in Nagoya. And so it is indeed around 300 images that we find in these first 10 volumes. Now, it didn't stop at that point, but it then continued on, and so there are 5 more volumes. It's unclear when they actually continued, but it's very likely that volume 11 was issued very closely in time to volume 12, and 12 we have a date of 1834. So but it continues on with new volumes coming out until 1878, long after Hokusai had died, because he died in 1849. So what is interesting here is that it's really a huge amount of different scenes. So the English translation, the sketchbook, is not a bad one, because we're really getting examples here by Hokusai of how somebody could draw something. And so volumes are very different, and there are many varieties of things, some that we don't really expect for someone like Hokusai to do that. So on the top top right, we've got an array of different kind of trees. Then top left, the funny scenes of people in various situations. Bottom right, a scene of somebody struggling against wind and rain, which we see much more in finished prints by him and other artists. But what we don't really see in his work is at bottom left, these very technical close-up views of handguns. So really an interesting wealth of material, and there are lots of publications devoted to this famous set and available out there today. Now, the other work that came out in 1814, here's an example of that, Manga of 100 Women. So that's much more reduced. It is just one volume, 31 illustrations by Aikawa Minwa, about whom we don't know much other than the years of that he was active, so 1806 to 21, and so here we have a scene of women picking tea leaves. Whether or not this one came out before the first volume of Hokusai manga or not, we don't know today. Now, this use of the term of manga, as we see it with Hokusai, so a large amount of different kinds of sketches, different kinds of suggestions, of painting suggestions. Other artists did as well after him. So one, for example, is Kyosai, who then created Kyosai's manga in 1881. We then in 1902 have the first time appearing the modern use of manga for a comic strip that was created by cartoonist Kitazawa Rakuten in the newspaper Jiji Shinpo. But his use of manga at that point for this comic strip was not yet mainstream, as can be seen in 1903, just the following year, Ogino Isui creating a book of practical manga, practical sketches. So he was still then using the old meaning for that publication. So here is an example, a double page from Kyosai's manga. Kyosai, who was a very avid painter and to some extent also a print artist, but largely really his paintings are amazing. And so so here you can see different types of masks. So this is just 24 double pages and 2 single pages that that this book has. Now, practical manga by Ogino Isui is a selection of abstract designs of animal and plant motifs that could then be used for other purposes. So it could be something for textile designers, or it could be something for lacquer designers, metal artists. So each one of the examples that he's giving is also labeled. It's a single volume only. So that was then in 1903. So the last time that manga was used in the way how Hokusai did it before. So to now give you a couple of examples of storytelling, of luxurious beautiful books that were created with some kind of other message. In the 1780s, the first poetry books were issued using the highest possible production methods. At the forefront of that was the publisher at Tsutaya Jusaburo, who collaborated especially with the print artist Kitagawa Utamaro. And there are two books to mention that are fantastic examples of what those two men were able to produce. One illustrated book of selected creatures, and the other one gifts of the ebb tide. I'm discussing both in my publication. I'm only showing you examples of one quickly here. The government put an end to that to some extent. The Kansei reforms in the 1790s then prohibited the use of deluxe features, and so the publisher Steyer began working with Hokusai in 1799. And then they released Amusements in the Eastern Capital with Kyoka poems, which was originally printed just in monochrome. So to make sure that that they're not getting in trouble, yeah, with the government. And in 1802, however, it seems that one was not considering the government as strong anymore, and so they republished that book then in color. So, but first, here is an example of the illustrated book of selected creatures from 1788, and you see on the left there are poems, and then on right side of those poems a nature scene. The book has 15 illustrations, very finely created. The use of blind printing, the use of mica. It's really great fun to look through this publication and to find the animals that are sometimes embedded within the flowers. So in this case, they are a bit more visible. There is a red dragonfly on the left, and then on the right, climbing up there is a locust. This is a page from the then reprint of Hokusai's Amusements in the Eastern Capital. So this is the illustrated book of Amusements in the Eastern Capital, 1802, and I've picked as example Nihonbashi, the famous bridge in the center of Tokyo that was considered also the center of Japan, and all the major highways spread into the country from there. So he's depicted here how busy that part of the town was. 1804, Hokusai then illustrated another book full of poems, Mountains Upon Mountains, and the title already hints at where we are location-wise. So it's really about the hilly parts of North and Northeast Edo, which is today the city of Tokyo. That's 30 illustrations, not with full of special printing features as the Utamaro books are, but still very nicely done, and great fun to look at. Now, moving on to actors, women, and leisure activities. The earliest work that I'm discussing in my publication is Ihara Saikaku's stories, illustrated fictional books that he wrote and also illustrated. Ihara Saikaku was the son of a wealthy merchant in Osaka. And so he did two books that became kind of famous. One, The Life of an Amorous Man, and the other one, The Life of an Amorous Woman. They are of erotic nature, but they are in no way shunga. Shunga, this term for very explicit yeah, erotic pictures. So there is nothing like that in these books, but the story itself is quite erotic. After him, Hishikawa Moronobu became the most important book illustrator of the 17th century and created monthly amusements in 1691, where he presented annual customs and events in Edo. And another area that is very interesting is the kabuki theater that developed at that time, and actors became stars. And so the fans wanted to follow them not only on stage but also off stage. And there are a couple of publications that show us how they are apparently behaved when they were not on stage. So, but rolling back, here is an example of the life of an amorous man. So this amorous man is Yonosuke, and we see him here on the left as he is yeah, sitting at the top of a roof, using a telescope to spy on a woman who is bathing, washing herself. So the story tells us that he was amorously involved with more than 3,700 women in his life, and also with 700 men. There are no boundaries, really, no limitations at that time. Everything is quite free. And the book then ends with him as he sails away to the island of women, and we can only imagine what else will happen then over there. The Moronobu's book of monthly amusements is, as the title says, yeah, focusing on things to do in Edo in a month. And so here is an example of the 19 illustrations that this book has. And you see here fireworks, boats out on Sumida River, people are picnicking on the boat and enjoying the fireworks in summer. Here now a scene from Amusements of Actors on the Third Floor, beautifully illustrated by Utagawa Toyokuni. And we've got a scene of 5 actors, yeah, in the summer rain, about to cross a bridge. It's evening, indicated by the darker sky, and then also the lanterns that 2 of them are carrying. Really a very nicely done work. A fellow artist of Toyokuni from the Utagawa school, Toyohiro, did this illustration in the illustrated book of Children of the East. Again, monthly situations. So this is here a ferry boat over to the Mokuboji temple. So these people here are heading over there because there is a festival happening at the temple. This is the 3rd lunar month, and they're going to attend that. Now, humorous stories is another beautiful and fun area that you can find in yeah, Japanese books. But it really starts all the way back in the 12th century with the scroll of frolicking animals and people that has been traditionally attributed to the priest Toba Sojo. And because of that, The name Toba was then used for similar drawings that became popular from around 1700. And so those drawings are then called Toba-e or Toba pictures. Humorous subjects also are frequented in kibyoshi, which is a type of illustrated storybook. Kibyoshi literally meaning yellow covers, which derives from them being published with yellow covers. And so they've got some simple illustrations. They are targeted at adults, not at children. But the most successful humorous story in the Edo period was Travels on the Tokaido, which is commonly known as Shank's Mare, written by Jipensha Iko and also illustrated by him. And the publication began in 1802. But first here a example from comic pictures to stop you from yawning. So this is one of these Toba-e pictures, 1720, an unknown artist, linear drawings, very much a caricature style. So we have here two men on the right, very skinny limbs, that are cutting down a pine tree. And the title of this illustration is Tengu Eggs. We see on the left what is happening as they are cutting on the tree. So it's very large eggs that are falling down from the branches. So the idea is that in Japanese folk belief, Tengu are living in trees. Tengu, supernatural beings with wings and beaks as ravens. And so we'll see on the left that one of those eggs cracks open, and a baby Tengu is in that, and one of the woodcutters is running away as more of these eggs are falling down on him. Here's an example for one of these kibyoshi books, one of these yellow cover books. This is titled The Unseemly Silver-Piped Swingers. It's a very dramatic story of a person that is born with two heads, a male and a female head. And as this person is becoming older, the situation is becoming more and more complicated. So the female has a boyfriend and the male has a girlfriend, and so it's very tough for this person where to go now. And so the two couples, in a dramatic move, decide that the only way out of this unfortunate situation is a double suicide. And so the four, well, are about to commit that, but then miraculously they meet a doctor who tells them that he knows a way how to solve this situation. And well, we are not told how. The book ends at that point. But you can see here how the text is written around the characters, and so that's really a one of these characteristics of these kibyoshi books, that you've got illustration and text right there next to each other. An example of Travels on the Tokaido, of this most famous and most successful humorous story first volume 1802, 8 volumes total, continued on until 1809. Well, there was a sequel also later that I'm not talking about now, but illustrations very simple. Iku himself did that, and here is the scene where the two the travelers, Yaji and Kita, are staying somewhere overnight, and this they don't have much money there, so they're staying in some kind of very affordable inn, and turtles got loose and are biting the people here that are meant to sleep. Beautiful example for a book where you have the text here at top in this kind of cloud separation is Fat Tales of Lucky Mice, illustrated by Toyohiro, printed in 1804. The story, as it says, is comparable to what I showed you earlier with the insect scroll. So, but here now we have mice, and it's about the love between a princess and a townsman, and you see here as the princess and her entourage is out there on the way to enjoy the cherry blossoms. The book was probably created without censor permission, because very soon after it came out, just a couple months later, it was reprinted, but then only in black and white and no longer in color. So it might have been a bit too luxurious and against the reforms that I mentioned before. Now, moving on, I'm getting to the supernatural adventure novels. So it's as early as the 8th century that supernatural beings have been mentioned in Japanese literature. These supernatural subjects were also popular in kibyoshi, in the yellow cover storybooks, and then in the 19th century, adventure stories became the prime subject for serial novels, as they could be published over many decades. And when we are thinking today of the many seasons of the Game of Thrones and all of those things out there, well, that was done in Japan already 200 years ago. So the lives of the 8 dog warriors of the Satomi clan was published from 1814 to 1842, up to a total of 106 booklets. It was a very long print run and a very long story. The Tale of Shiranui even was published over a period of 60 years, so even longer. And another one of those longer ones and very popular ones is A Rusty Genji by a false Murasaki, that was published 1829 to 42. But first two singular volume books. So here is an example illustrated by Tori Kiyonaga, who is much more famous for his prints of beautiful women. This book is called Bonsai Trees and the Demon's Inheritance. So the story is that a demon chief is on a pilgrimage, but his son transferred into a human to philander with women, which then the demon chief hears about and makes him rather unhappy. And here is the scene where this elderly demon chief reaches the house of Horsehead, and he is seeking shelter with Horsehead. Here is an example now of lives of the 8 dog warriors of the Satomi clan, and on the left you get an idea how complex this publication ended up to be. So started in 1814, first volume came out. At that point, the illustrator was Yanagawa Shigenobu. And Shigenobu then continued on for a couple of more years, but then other artists came in and took over, either because the original illustrator might not have had interest anymore to go on, or yeah, died. So there are different scenarios that happened. The same actually is the case with the writers. So these long publications that went on over decades, commonly then also the not only the illustrators change, but the writers do change as well. I don't have that listed here, but I have it listed in detail in my book. So in this case, the writer is Kyokude Bakin. The story spans from 1441 to 1500, and it's really an epic narrative about eight warriors who origin of the spiritual relationship of Princess Fuse and the, listen carefully, family dog Yatsufusa. So eight, yeah, that's why they're called the eight dog warriors, because their father is a dog, and so we're being told about their adventures. The so here is an example of a rustic Genji by a false Murasaki, which we know a little bit about how that popular this work was. There is a diary entry by someone written during publication of this serial novel, and who said, and he writes that the publisher is very, very happy because he is selling 15,000 copies of every booklet. So what I picked as an example here, a scene where you actually rotate the book by 90 degrees, so that you can see a scene, yeah, that's happening on a vertical. We find that already in volumes of Hokusai manga, but it became much more popular now here in these serial novels. And so this is a scene where yeah, our male protagonist is standing down yeah, at the base of the house next to a well, and he is flirting with the beautiful young woman up there. And so we can imagine what is going to happen later as things progress. The here is a scene from the tale of Shiranui, another one of these very, yeah, long-lasting publications, mainly about Princess Wakana, who unlocks spider magic. Here is a fantastic, yeah, situation. These are two double pages on the left. That's what you first see actually in one of the volumes. So we have this hot air balloon with these two men, and one with a telescope is looking, and on the right we see on the following double page what he sees. So he sees the princess there, and there's a bit of a use of color. This is an example where the cover and the first interior pages were actually done by a more famous artist, and so then the later part of the book, the main part of the book, were created by second tier artists. So the more well-known one was hired so that yeah, sales would be good. Now, quickly getting to Hokusai's fantastical series novels. From 1803 to 45, he worked on 33 different series of supernatural novels, comprising 200 volumes and containing almost 1,500 illustrations. So that's something that not many realize, how extremely busy he was with illustrating books, and that was the main income for him. So here is the new illustrated water margin. That publication began in 1805. The story is about a rogue group of 108 members. Story happens in China. Hokusai never been to China, so it's all his imagination that we can, and wild scenes, really fabulously illustrated. The supernatural you can see on the left with this gigantic, monstrous snake. On the right, a lovely scene of winter where these two men yeah, are walking to a village. Another work, Strange Tales of the Crescent Moon, also written by Buckin, who did the Dog Warriors. This story is about Minamoto Tametomo, who was a famous archer, and you see here a scene where a monster has killed an infant and is leaving the scene with the infant in his mouth. The Husband and Wife Mountains from 1810 is about two families living on opposite mountains, and the son of one falls in love with the daughter of the other. This scene here, however, is the evil Fukashichi, who is in some haunted house, and you see all these different kinds of creatures that are crawling around him. A Rustic Tale of Two Heirs is about two girls and their inheritance, and there's one story where a bandit, Shinosuke, betrays this very large guardian figure that came to life in a game, and then the guardian figure then later kills, as we see here, this bandit because he got betrayed, and he didn't like that at all. The life of Shakyamuni from 1845, a later publication 4 years before Hokusai passed away. Maybe more a studio production than a production by Hokusai himself. We don't know, but we do have a letter where Hokusai talks about this publication and demands a specific carver to be hired to work for him because he's the best to do hair. Now, coming to the last part, the influx of Western ideas. So we have this first weekly magazine of humor and satire that was founded in London in 1841. It was called Punch, and then Punch found its follower in Japan through the British artist Charles Workman. He was a correspondent for the Illustrated London News, and here's an example of what he then did. Published from 1862 until 1887. Very simple illustrations. This here is called Results of Our Intercourse with Japan. In 1869, the Meiji government allowed the publication of newspapers, and along with them, the depiction of current affairs. So that then really changed the situation. And so 1874 was then when Illustrated Japan News started to come out with illustrations by Kyosai. And 1877 was the start of Marumaru Chimbun, Here is an example for Maru Maru Chimbun that also had a English title, Japanese comic paper. What you see here on the screen is the cover of the April 23rd issue from 1892. So several different artists that worked on this. The main purpose was to lampoon the government. They focused on current affairs. So 1892 was yet or 1877 when it started. Japan was not yet involved in wars. Well, that then changes in the years to come, and following political satire magazines then focus on the war situation. So here is an example of Nipponchi. Nipponchi started to come out in 1904. For only a brief period until 1906. 1904 was when the Russo-Japanese War began. This you see here the October 20, 1904 cover. It was created by Azuma Kenzaburo, who had published Fusoku Gaho. Fusoku Gaho was Japan's first graphic magazine that started to come out in 1889. And so an offshoot of that is this Nipponchi. It was really a product of the pro-war atmosphere in Japan at that time. Tokyo Puck is another example of a political magazine that actually included English captions. Kitazawa Rakuten, who was mentored by the Australian Frank Nankivel, was the driving force behind this magazine. And here is the cover of the 1908 July 1st one. And then what would be used for the cover of my book really came Joto Ponchi. Joto Ponchi, or High Class Punch, was founded by Kunkida Doppo, who created Fujin Gaho. Fujin Gaho, the Illustrated Women's Gazette, began to come out in 1905. Actually, Fujin Gaho is still published today, but Joto Ponchi, the satirical version, only came out for 2 years. And what we see here is an example from the very first one. So this is number one from 1907. I'm closing with Jiji Manga. So the very first time that manga is used, and so this is also Kitazawa Rakuten. He first did a comic strip in the newspaper Jiji Shinpo in 1902. And then it took until 1921 for this strip to become its own independent supplement. And so here you see the 1926 June 20th supplement. It was comics for women and children, but there was also a lot of political satire, which is nowadays quite hard to understand. There is lots more in my book, and I apologize for having to rush at the end. But yeah, as I know we want to finish sharp on time, but I hope that we can go a little bit over time with some questions. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Thank you, Andreas. What a wonderful talk. And I've read your book and was really greatly struck by and impressed by the beautiful production and images that you also shared with us in your talk just now. I think it's essential reading for those who are interested in the antecedents of manga. Now, there have been several questions, one of which I'd like to start with which is, how accessible are the publications you introduced in your book to readers today? Are there translations available in English?
So, unfortunately, not enough. There's unfortunately not enough translations. The Rusty Genji was privately published, translated by someone. I know that Ihara Saikaku's Amorous Man, yeah, that exists in translation. Hokusai Manga, that's been out for several decades. Michino, I think, was maybe the first who did a nice publication on Hokusai Manga, discussing yeah, the various different things. But the vast majority of what I just showed you, unfortunately, is not available in English, and it's unfortunately also not that easy. So some of these, well, there are transcriptions into modern Japanese. And so that's kind of like the first step in a way. You have to get into modern Japanese first, and then yeah, you could translate. So I wish that that the literature people out there would yeah, would try to get indulged in this. But I do understand if there are 106 booklets, yeah, that's a bit long and a bit tough to translate that as a single person. So so there certainly is room here, and I can only encourage people to look at these titles and the amazing images, the amazing illustrations that you find in them. And I wish I would be able to reproduce some of these books entirely, and not only show examples in my own publication.
Excellent. Well, I'm afraid it's past 6 o'clock now, so I wish we could take the other questions, but I will send them to you. And they were all, very thoughtful and addressed many of the things you talked about. So thank you so much for a wonderful webinar. And
Thank you for having me.
thank you. And a recording of this webinar will be posted on the JASA website in a few days. And our next webinar will be on December 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Dr. Jeannie Kenmutsu from the Portland Museum of Art, who will speak about her current exhibition of works by the 20th century painter and printmaker, Yoshida Shizuko. We really hope that you can join us then. And until next time, and many thanks to all. Bye-bye.